Our exclusive interview with the wife of J.D. Vance, Usha, and we talked about their different backgrounds and how their shared values of family brought them together.
The cameras were rolling, the whole country was watching. And then she stood up, tears in her eyes, and shocked everyone. J.D. Vance's wife, always calm and strong, did something no one expected. But why? What pushed her to this moment? Stay with us because this story is just getting started. What happened next changed everything. It wasn't going on in the background. It wasn't in an email that got out or a political scandal. It happened in front of millions of people on live TV. The woman who had been continuously attacked and harshly criticized for months finally lost it. The calmness she had worked so hard to keep fell apart in an instant. The whole room got cold. The whole country looked on in shock. Everything fell apart, right? Then the question is, what made her go too far? Whatever it was that she saw that made her finally speak up. You should keep watching because this is only the beginning. It was very quiet in the room. It was the kind of quiet that makes every breath feel heavy and stretches the distance between something usual and something that will change history. J.D. Vance sat on stage and gripped the table in front of him, putting his fingers into the wood. The bright lights above him gave him a steady glow, but something was breaking beneath that smooth surface. It had started out like any other night planned, controlled and regular now. Though it was nothing like that. An old woman in the crowd slowly got to her feet. She was weak but determined under the bright light. The metals on her jacket sparkled, and the microphone in her hand shook a little. She wasn't in politics, she wasn't a reporter. No one in that room could breathe when she spoke, though. Even though her speech wasn't very loud, it could be heard and cut through the air like a blade. The question itself wasn't what shook the event to its core. It was the weight of it. It was about something else. It wasn't about the future of America. It had to do with something more important than a campaign speech or a news release. As the words hit, J.D. Vance, he blinked and his face got stiff. He was used to answering tough questions, protests, media storms, and being caught in the middle of political battles, but this wasn't like that. His jaw got tight and his lips separated a little, as if he were going to say something, but he never did. As he swallowed hard, his throat moved back and forth, and his chest rose and fell with each breath. In all of his years in politics, J.D. Vance never looked more lost than he did that day. The cameras got really close and caught every detail. His shoulders tensing up, his fingers curled into fists, and his short, weak breaths. The crowd wasn't moving. The reporters who generally take notes or whisper to each other quickly just sat there. There were pens on top of notepads in the press area. News anchors leaned forward and gripped their earpieces as they tried to understand what was happening. There was a noise, a small change from the background, that wasn't really noticed until Usha Vance got up. The action was small, but it had a big effect right away. A lot of people heard the whispers. People looked around. Things changed in the room's mood. Everyone looked at her. Her face was pale and she was taking deep, steady breaths that made her chest rise and fall. But what really showed were her eyes. The months of close attention. The talk that goes on behind closed doors before she could even speak. The headlines tore her apart. The attacks on social media turned her into an issue before she had a chance to say what she stood for. It was all there written. In the honest feeling she had hid for so long. She didn't wipe her eyes when they got wet. She didn't straighten up. She did nothing but stand there. She just stared at her husband for a moment. He had been there for her through every storm attack and attempt to erase her from the story. After that, she moved one step ahead, then another. The sound of her shoes hitting the floor was louder than it should have been. It seemed like the moment went on for too long. The woman reached for the mic. The air got tighter. All eyes were on them. People had spent months arguing about how much she was worth watching her every move and picking her apart. Now they were sitting there in quiet because they had to listen. For the first time, she held the microphone with one hand, and her fingers were white, but her voice didn't shake when she talked. That voice was raw, heavy, and full of something bigger than anger or tiredness. It told the truth about who she was, the truth about how much it cost her to be there, the truth about what it was like to live in a world that never really accepted her. She wasn't here to fight back. She didn't come to argue. She was here to clear things up. Every bad news story, mean statement and attempt to erase her had worn her down. She tried to rise above it all to block out the noise and to tell herself that she was more than how they saw her. Though strong, nothing could prepare people for what it was like to be erased and judged over. And over again, people had said she was a problem, a burden, and a distraction. It wasn't about what she had done. It wasn't about who she was. It had nothing to do with that. She was never meant to fit in here. They already knew what she was. No matter what she did or how quiet she was, it had been months of acting like the attacks didn't bother her. She kept her head up, smiled, and stood tall. There was nothing else she could do. Though she looked out at the crowd without anger or tears in her eyes. People in that room had talked about her, debated her, and made up their minds about who she was for months. But they had never listened. They had no choice but to listen to the truth. Now then, she said what no one thought she would say. The room changed when she did, the country changed. Things would never be the same again. There were millions of people who kept refreshing their screens and wanting to know the truth. But the truth wasn't going to come out yet. There was still more damage to come. Usha Vance's resignation wasn't just a political controversy, it was a defining moment. Stepping away from her role as Second Lady, she refused to endure the relentless pressure of being tied to one of the most polarizing administrations in modern history. Her departure forced the nation to question the role of the Second Lady. Should she remain a silent symbol, or does she deserve agency? Her exit sent shockwaves through Washington. Some saw it as empowerment, proof that women in politics don't have to silently endure attacks. Others viewed it as a failure, a sign of weakness. For J.D. Vance, the pressure intensified. His loyalty to Trump was now under scrutiny, and his political future hung in the balance. Usha's resignation exposed a deeper truth. Loyalty to Trump comes at a cost. If even those closest to the presidency couldn't withstand the pressure, what did that say about the administration's strength? Her final act wasn't just a resignation, it was a refusal to let the system define her. The fallout was far from over, and the implications would reshape the political landscape.